Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to, I think, our sixth webinar that we have here for CBDNA. My name is Matthew Dockendorf. I'm a member of the Social Media Committee for CBDNA, and it's our pleasure to present these sessions for you the last 6 weeks. And I know you're going to enjoy this session entitled Branding Your Program, Why It's Important and How you can do it. And I'm really excited to welcome today our presenter, Dr. Sean Murray. He's Associate Professor of Music and Director of Bands at University of Alabama at Birmingham. And his responsibilities include directing the UAB Marching Blazers, the University Wind Symphony, teaching undergraduate conducting classes in conducting and music education, and coordinating all aspects of UAB's comprehensive university band program. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Many of you have been a part of these meetings before, but just a reminder to keep your microphone muted throughout the webinar. And if you have any questions throughout the event, I'll be monitoring those in the chat, and then we can have some question and answer with Dr. Murray at the end of the session. And then also just for your information, the session is being recorded and we will have it logged up on our CBDNA YouTube page. I would encourage you to check out that and all of our social media that we have as part of CBDNA. So with that, I'll turn it over and please help me welcome Dr. Sean Murray.
Hey folks, how we doing? So glad to be here. Good to see friends and colleagues from all over the country and everything. I think before we get started, we'll go ahead and I'll ask Matt McCutcheon if he'll go ahead and lead us in the national anthem. Matt, if you just unmute yourself and then we'll just take us through that. No? Okay. I am so happy that you guys are here. This is a subject which I've been involved with for a while, just to kind of develop through many numbers of years of doing this. But I think over the next hour, I'm gonna try to give you as much information as I possibly can. A lot of it you may not use, a lot of it you may do already. But with all of that, hopefully you can take something away from this. I think this is a subject that a music teacher at any level who's running a program, middle school, high school, elementary school, college, can take something from. And so we're gonna try to move through this as much as possible, leave some time for some questions. And then we'll share any information, the slides and an outline in the chat window, so you can download it kind of at your leisure. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and share screens here, and then I'll take you through my dazzling presentation, which I spent I don't know how much time on. All right, here we go. Is everyone seeing that okay? Yeah, it's an affirmative. Fantastic. So again, we're talking about branding your band program today, and that word branding can mean a lot of different things, and you may have an idea of what it is. And again, many of you who are tuning in already maybe have some aspect of this set up inside your program. So today we're just going to talk through like the different aspects of it and why this is an important thing for your band, just moving forward for a lot of different reasons. But it's reasons that we see every day. We deal with marketing and we deal with interactions of products and stuff like that. And our band program is a product like anything else. We're recruiting students to it. We're trying to get them to get an idea of our program, and that's where this starts. So like I said, there's a lot of aspects of this and you can take from it what you want. But the thing I want to start talking about more than anything is promises and positions. When we talk about promises and positions, what we're really talking about, and for many of you may already have this with your program, is that idea of a mission statement. Here's our band program, here's our choral program, whatever it may be, and here are the things that we believe in as part of that program, and the things that we do, and that hopefully guides the rest of the program. With the brand, the promises and positions, the way that really works for us is this idea of what does your program offer. So when you're starting in the branding process, you want to think about, okay, musical, non-musical, things like musical growth, leadership skills, diversity, focus of program. What are the things that your program offers? And everyone offers something different. And sometimes it's musical related. Sometimes it has to do with the faculty or the facilities or what's available to you. But ultimately, it can also deal with like where you are in the country. You know, a student's interested in moving out to the Pacific Northwest and your university's out there, and that can go a long way towards helping them understand what your program's all about. So we start with brand promises, and these are types of things we're going to think about as it relates to that. As we talked about the position, and this goes into that other side, what's unique about your program? Where is it located in the country? What's the environment? Is it a four-year college? Is it a small, it's a large-scale university? What's the environment? Who are the faculty that you have? And what are the opportunities? And again, as you think about all these things, you're just using these positions and promises to hopefully guide what it is you're looking to do and how you're trying to market yourself to prospective students or to the community or anybody who may interact with your program one way or another. So those are the things I want you to think about. First of all, is positions and promises and what that offers. One of the things I did here is kind of in prep for this is we went ahead and I did kind of a brand manual. Most universities have this already, and maybe you've clamped an eye on it before, but I guarantee even if you haven't, most universities absolutely have what they call a brand manual, or they may call it a visual guide or standards guide or something like that. This is a mock-up, and I'll share this with you at the end, the full thing, but we'll look at piece by piece. So in this case, this is Invented University, West End University. I thought it sounded catchy. I think there's only one West End in the world, and it's in Ghana or something like that. So we're not going to infringe upon, I think, what's going on there. But West End University is just the kind of the sample college that we're going to be taking a look at, and how I kind of formulated a brand around them. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So telling your story, every brand has a personality, and that personality is determined by what your positions and promises are. So in this brand manual, the second page of it is just like a little letter from this fictional band director talking about what are the strategic plans at West End University, what are the things we're looking at, what are some of the things that make us special, and it's kind of an introductory just telling you what the university is about, essentially. And I want to make this clear. A brand manual is not for you as the band director. A brand manual is for somebody else, whether it be a grad student who's coming into your program, who's going to be working with you, or if you're asking someone to do some work from you for like an event or something like that, and they're writing up press releases or something like that, this can go a long way towards letting them know what your program's about. So it's really about like, here's how we want to be represented, and that's why this manual exists. But putting it together also helps you keep a solid idea of what's the end goal, what are the things we're trying to portray as we move forward. So brand personality, promises, and positions, we talked about that. Those positions and promises ultimately determine the tone and content you use as part of your brand's personality. What are the things you want to portray when you put things out onto the internet or send things out? What do you want that to look like to the people who are receiving it? Do we want it to be even across the board? We want it to have the same kind of look and feel with everything that we send out. And that's part of this telling your story with the brand's personality. Again, sample from this brand manual, their position, and you can see talking about, strategic plans and organization focused on continuing improvement. These are just the types of things that you want to kind of think about as in terms of your program. And again, some of us have mission statements inside of our departments or colleges or even our band programs that can be easily written into some copy here for a manual like this. All that being said, brand voice. When we talk about brand voice, we're talking about consistency in how content is delivered. So examples of like messaging and content choices. And you can see I put here five words that I thought encompassed West End University: ambition, diversity, opportunity, exceptional, and urban. And then I just defined it down there below, and you can see we talk about energetic dynamic organization, continuous improvement. And then we also listed some things that may be special about your program. We doubled enrollment in the last 3 years, or we've performed nationally and internationally. Any of these things that can kind of fit into that idea of ambition as one of your goals inside your program and what your voice is for that particular program. So again, here's the ones that I came up with. Diversity, opportunity. Again, a lot of us come from very diverse campuses and institutions, and that's a draw for a lot of students. For them to know that it's in a place where they're going to get some diversity on campus. Urban versus rural, big city versus small town. These are all things that can be draws and are part of the voice in what you're doing. The idea behind this page right here, our voice, is really to kind of like, if you're going to put together a pamphlet or something on your university or your program, you want to stick to these topics so that everything that comes out is about these very things. And especially if somebody else is writing for you, if the college contacts you and is going to put out an article, you want to send them something like this so they can use some of these same concepts, some of this information, and an effort to really make sure that it sounds the same across all the different avenues in which you're communicating with folks. Okay, so tone and guidance, instructions on the tone used writing about the program. If you're writing, like I said, if you've got a grad student who you've asked to put together an event calendar for or an event flyer for, you want them to be able to look at this and say, hey, listen, be direct, use simple language, get your point across, celebrate the university's strengths, support your message with facts, give facts about the university. All of these things really help you really pinpoint in on exactly what's great about your program. So many times we lose that, or we end up talking about things that don't really appeal or aren't on message with what we really want our students or incoming prospective students to know about us. So tone and guidance is a very important subject here when we're talking about the writing of that. Okay. So again, here in our examples, aim to inspire, and I just kind of put that, copied and pasted that here into our brand manual. This is something, as a way for people to, whether they're giving a speech or whether they're talking to people in public, we want them to always be using some of these same tone and guidance measures. And again, this is a manual telling people how you want to be portrayed. All of that being said, what we most recognize when we talk about brands is the visual side of it. So we get this first side of it. And again, coming into something like this, when you think about branding your program, or you were looking at this, many times that's the thing we think about is, okay, what's the logo going to look like? Or what are we going to do with this? Or how are we going to use it? But I really want to emphasize that first part of the presentation there on talking about that. Those things, positions and promises and tone and guidance and your personality, you want to then focus into a visual brand. Now, here's the thing. Most of us, in some form or fashion, folks, have already had something like this at our university. We have a logo maybe for the university. We have, like I said, many universities already have a visual guide standard where they're talking about some of these very same things. We want at a band level to focus on things that are specific to our program. And again, if you're at a big college or college of music or something like that, they may have one that's specific to just that college. Knowing that ahead of time is a really important thing, and we'll talk more about that. What you don't want to do is come out with this logo for your band program that has nothing to do with what the college is doing or nothing to do with what the university is doing. If you're teaching high school or middle school, the same thing. Your school probably has a set of colors or things that they use on the regular, and you want to make sure you're adhering to that. That's why I say it's so easy to, even a simple Google search, so many universities have public their brand manuals. You can type in any university, type in style guide or brand manual, and you can bring up a PDF that talks specifically about the things that we're talking about today. So it's important in both promises and positions and stuff like that to have an idea of what your university is saying already. And in some cases, you want to adopt that. You want to take what's already been done for you. You don't want to try to reinvent the wheel on some of that stuff and go ahead and incorporate it. So let's talk now about the visual side. And this is the part where that we see the most. And we think about it all the time. Why it's important, and of course I put some very standard brands here, it's very hard not to be able to easily recognize, these 7, icons as to what the company is or what the organization is. And so in a matter of seconds, you see this and from years and years, or in some cases not even. I mean, if you look at these icons, Twitter is probably the youngest of all of them, but you see that bird in that blue and you automatically know what it's about, and something that is related to that. So many of these are iconic in that manner. And again, in a matter of seconds, they know what's being presented and they know something about you. And again, we talk here in this little thing about 5 key elements to make your visual brand cohesive, and that is your brand mark, your color, your typeface, graphics, and imagery. And we're going to break each one of those down and kind of talk about them individually. First thing is first here, we talk about word marks or logos and what they represent, their usage, origins, if anything. We talk about format variations, color variations, and then something that's a weird thing to talk about when you're talking about word marks or logos, and that is clear zones. I put this one for Coca-Cola up here because this shows obviously Coca-Cola's brand throughout the years, and every so often they reinvent themselves, and Coke's one of the oldest corporations that is still very much a part of what we do on a daily basis. And you can see how, although it's evolved up until 2007 and really even to 2020 here, there's not a whole lot of change. You can see 1985 there when they went to New Coke or whatever, and the disaster that was, and they rebranded themselves, and then they thought, well, let's come back to regular Coca-Cola. But I guarantee that if I put up even just like a red block with that white ribbon going through it without any words, you'd still know what brand I was talking about. And that comes through years and years of what we're talking about in this instance, which is keeping your brand on message and making sure it's always presented in the same way every time you put it out there. Because pretty soon you don't even need the words there. You just recognize what's going on. So we'll take a look at some more issues with word marks and logos here. This is the one I designed for West End University. You can see there's an initial mark, which of course is just the initials for the university, and then the word mark. And the word mark obviously is the one you want to use primarily, but occasionally for other things, once you have a more established brand, you can start to use that initial mark to give you a little bit less of a, takes up less space obviously. But I just put this together. This is kind of off the cuff. And, you can see here, I took some time. It's West End University. So you've got the compass, which is facing west. All these things kind of go to incorporate something about the university right out of the mix. You could also say, let's say the university was near water. Again, the compass is another way to kind of portray that. Any type of thing like that that can go forward on this. Now, again, most of your organizations, schools, band programs even already have logos. And as we saw with Coca-Cola, sometimes over the years, those change. Sometimes you end up with wanting to rebrand yourself to say, listen, this is a pretty outdated logo. Universities do that all the time. Sometimes they change, their mascot entirely, and then they go under a rebranding. And so anything like this is important. But again, if you're going to do it specifically for your band, and there are plenty of university bands, college bands that have like their own logo just for that institution, this is this, university band. And although they still have their individual logo, it's still on point with the colors and stuff that are going on with that particular university as a whole. So this is West End University. This is what I came up with in terms of wordmark. Ultimately, we have alternate spirit logos or things that go on. I use Facebook as an example. Facebook's logo is actually the word Facebook in the lowercase, which you see often when you log on. But in this day and age of apps on your phone, everything's been shortened down to, in many cases, an alternative mark. So you can see here the evolution kind of a Facebook logo where it was, has the little shimmer off of it, and pretty much they decided to do away with that. And part of that has to do with the fact that the logos become more identifiable. There's no one who doesn't see that lowercase f and doesn't know, for the most part, that's Facebook. I remember a couple of years ago, Instagram changed from like what looked like a real camera to like this orangey, purplish something. And for a second, people were like, is that the Instagram? Like, you know, and so when you see changes like that, that was a vast one. But sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes you find that in order to maybe grab attention again, you change something about your logo or the colors you use or something like that. So how it's represented. In this case, we're looking at variations of this logo. And in the brand manual, it's important to have variations like this because ultimately your logo is not going to always be shown in its colors. So for instance, that first one there at the top of the column is our standard one. And then we've got one that's all kind of the light blue. And then we have one that's all aquamarine. Eventually though, you're going to put something on black and white, and you have to decide whether you want that to be shades of gray or if you want it to be a fully black logo. You know, if you're putting something against a darker background or even a lighter background, sometimes those logos won't show up. So there's a lot of different ways that you can vary this, but you'll notice in this brand manual, what I've said here is if you're going to use that logo, first preference is that 2-color logo. Second preference is, you know, another color by itself. And then the third one is all black. So you get these variations about like how you want those used. If you can use the full color one, use it. If you're using it on a black and white document, then use all black. Those are things that you're trying to convey to people if you're not there to tell them. And again, that keeps it from being someone messing with it or changing it. The other thing that a lot of brand manuals talk about is spacing. Like when you have your logo somewhere, you don't want anything else that kind of is close to it or that can be associated with your logo. So a lot of them will set up like spacings to say, you know, 1/2 the size of the letters is how much you've got to allow around your logo. And if you've ever done anything like this or turned anything like this, you may have gotten a note back from your like creative department that says, listen, you got to put the logo out here. It can't be part of this other thing. And that has to do with spacing and making sure that the logo is always presented as you intended. And again, it might seem very trivial, or it might be seem a little strict, but again, this goes towards that idea. Okay, minimum size. This is another big one. A lot of times you'll see your students do this all the time. Like if you have a logo for your band, a lot of times you'll see them using it for like some, you know, something that they're doing, and you'll get it down to the, you know, point where you can't actually see what the letters are, or it doesn't look very good anymore. So a lot of brand manuals will also decide, hey, this is as small as we ever want this printed. So in this case, you know, the initial mark is 3/4 of an inch, and then 2 inches for the full word mark. And again, like I said at the beginning of this, some of this you might never ever use, but I want to make sure that you know about it, because a lot of times if you're going to start using logos that you've designed or had designed, some of this stuff will come back and they're going to ask about stuff like this. So do's and don'ts, and this is the one that I think we find, I'm not amused by it, but I see happen all the time, where we start doing variations of color, combinations, scale, proportions, additions or deletions. And let me show you some examples of this, because I feel like this happens all the time, is you get the logo in like some color that has no bearing on your university whatsoever. Or you see like someone takes it off the internet and changes like university bands, and they might substitute it out for whatever their program is, and they use a completely different font for part of it. Or they add the big, you know, like shape behind it. And again, the thing that's funny about this, and I only laugh from personal experiences, and doing this, I'll get notes back sometimes when I turn in graphics or something to a program, to someone who's got to approve it, and they'll go, well, listen, you can't put the big explosion behind it. And then you'll drive down University Boulevard and they'll have these little banners hanging off the light poles that are the logo with, you know, different things behind it. You're, you know, and of course it's a do as I, you know, say, not as I do type thing, but in keeping that the same. Resizing elements, you can see there. In the middle there, you saw I deleted the compass, and you always want the compass to be with the letters. And then the one I see more often than not than anything else is this last one: do not redraw or reproportion. And a kid will like scale it up, or like will grab the button to make it bigger. And a lot of times if you hit the shift button on your computer, it'll keep it in scale as you make it, you know, bigger or smaller. But a lot of times they'll end it like this, and now the the WEU is stretched out. It doesn't quite look right. People do this all the time with photography too. You'll see like a brochure, and like they'll try to fit like someone's face inside a small box, and instead of scaling it down, they'll just stretch the image, and then it kind of has an unprofessional look about it. So just in some incorrect usages you've probably seen, or maybe seen something like this in and about with some of that stuff. Color. This is the next side of this. Obviously, we've already talked about our colors with this. With any color palette, you want a primary color, a secondary color, and some schools even have like complementary colors, things that go along with it. And that idea of a primary color for the logo, a secondary color, and here's how we always use it, and this is the way it's always done. And we'll talk some more about usage and then some of this format stuff here below. Color palette. This, in any brand manual, you will see this for your university. You will see primary colors, in this case, the marine green and the sky blue. And then I put secondary colors that I only want them to be paired with. Gray, black, obviously white will, inevitably come up. Now, let me kind of decipher what these things are down the left-hand side. And this is really important for your program because it's going to tell, let's say you send your logo off to a print shop, or if you send it off to a guy making t-shirts for you, or whatever's going to happen, you want that logo reprinted correctly. Many times they'll ask for these color symbols, and you'll see they're different depending on what's being printed. So if you look under marine green there, it says CMYK, which is a basic color set for printing. Like if you're printing something out on paper, you want to use the colors for marine green that I've listed there. C is 78, M is 13, Y is 31, and K is 1. And each of that is, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That's what CMYK stands for. And if you combine all those colors in those proportions, you'll end up with marine green. Below it is RGB, red, green, blue. If you're going to use something that's particularly for web or for TV or something, you want to use red, green, blue, because yellow and magenta and cyan don't go into making up colors on the TV screen or on a monitor. So a lot of times it might be a slight change, but you want to provide the RGB, red, green, and blue numbers in that instance. The reason these are also important is programs like Microsoft Word and some of the other programs I'm going to show you will specifically ask you, like, what color do you want to use? And sometimes we use like an eyedropper to kind of grab, or we try to approximate it in the color wheel. But if you ever look at like a Microsoft color wheel, down in the bottom, many times they'll have spots to enter the numbers for CMYK or RGB or whatever it is. And you punch those in. And then of course the last numbers there are web colors. So if you're doing something for a website and you want the colors to approximate, you want to use those hex numbers or the HTML numbers in order for those colors to match. So we've got our primary colors, our secondary colors, and this is an important thing. I remember I did my undergrad at Florida State back in the 90s, and at that time, they like garnet was like red, yellow was like or gold was like a regular yellow, and so you'd see all this merchandise being sold all over the place that was varying colors and styles and all this stuff. And it took, of course, and some people were sore about this, but it took Nike coming in like they have at so many institutions, Nike or Adidas or Under Armour or something, and coming in and going, no, these are the colors and these are what you're going to use. Or the university adopts like a set color and then asks that everything being printed through t-shirts or hats or whatever all follow that color scheme. And that's important. That's important. Okay, so along with colors comes typography. Typography we deal with all the time. You open up, you select the nice Comic Sans font on Microsoft Word or whatever it is, you got the font that you like, and you start using it. Many times, and again, I don't think I've run into a university yet that hasn't designated preferred typography for their documents. And again, that's the idea of every time a flyer comes to a high school, you're recruiting a high school and you send them out a flyer, it has the same colors, the same logo, and ultimately is presented with the same font. And you don't vary from that on, like, depending on your mood, and go, I'm going to do some cursive thing that I can't read well or it doesn't print well. So this deciding on this is important. The difference between all fonts are serif and sans serif fonts. You can see in this box here at the top, sans serif fonts don't have the little feet on them. And then of course I kind of highlighted there the serif ones to the right, and you can see they got the little feet on there. So every font is either a serif font or a sans serif font. Many times the difference with serif fonts is they allow for easier reading. Like most books that you buy from Barnes & Noble or else are going to be printed in serif because it allows the eye to flow across the letters. But most of the time logos and stuff like that, or any type of ads, are going to be printed in a sans serif just because it's a little bit more bold. It stands out a little bit more. So, and I put down here, serif fonts, traditional, established, trustworthy. Those are words that are associated with that. And then sans serif fonts, you get this modern, approachable, it's a clean look. And so deciding on your fonts are an important thing. And again, you can go with the university. For me here at UAB, I chose to go with the fonts that the university already set up, so that my stuff looks the same if it's coming from the band department or if it's coming from the university as a whole. And that goes a long way. So you can have a primary serif font, you can have a secondary serif font. You can choose to use one and not the other. You don't have to have a serif and a non-serif font. It's all depending on what you want. So for this manual here, this is my typography for West End. For anything, and you can see out to the right there, I put for headlines, we're going to use the font named Big John. And I gave examples of what it looks like. For titles, for like a header or something, we're going to use this ostrich sans rounded medium font. And then for subtitles, Proxima Nova semi-bold and Proxima Nova regular for full text inside of for like an article. So if you're writing the body of a document, you want to use the Proxima Nova regular. And again, this keeps everything looking the same. It keeps it the same for anyone who sees it. And these are the choices that we made. Now, here's the thing. Most of the time, fonts don't, I mean, what Microsoft the Office comes loaded with like 800 different fonts or something like that that you can use. But there are specialty fonts out there that you can purchase, or someone can even design for you if you want something specific. You can have people design, or you can go online and even buy usage of some of these nicer, more customizable fonts. But these are the ones that I chose just for this example. And so all of that being said, we've talked about our colors, our typography, our logos, all these things. And now how do we apply it? How do we start using them? And this is the how-to part of the process. You've decided on all these things. Now, what do we use them for? So photography, and I'll talk about that in a second. Photography, when I talk about applications, I'm not talking about logo usage. I'm talking about positions and promises from the very beginning. Retail and promotional items, vehicles. So many of you guys now, especially some of the large universities, have the big semi-trailer, and it's, band, or high schools. Some of these big high schools have the trailer that's got all their instruments in it, and they get a wrap done on it, or a van. And what's that going to look like? And are you able to provide graphics to them? And then things as simple as stationery. So let me just show you how I've applied this. Photography comes in this. You go back to those words you talked about at the beginning, like if you've got those words that are kind of the keywords for your institution, whether it's ambition or location or whatever it is, those things want to be represented in your photography. So if you're going to use a picture of the campus, you want to make sure, like in here I put like sunny optimism. Don't, make sure you're using a good picture. Make sure it's one that portrays a certain thing. If curiosity and innovation is a hallmark of your program, then make sure you're taking pictures of things that are innovative. You've got a big commercial music program or music production lab that's a draw for students. Make sure you have quality photos of that. Or if you've got a brand new band building, you want to make sure that that's in everything that goes out the door. So again, it's a draw. So making sure that you take photography seriously is a big deal. Also, and we don't always have the means for this. And again, I understand that. So many times you go, well, I don't know how to get good photos. I don't have a camera of my own. So many times, at least at the university level, there are creative services, and they have like an online portfolio of photos that you're able to use and incorporate in any type of thing. If you've got someone coming out to take pictures of you, making sure that they're high quality photos, and making sure that they're very in line with these words or phrases that we chose to use. And then, of course, just, personal pet peeve is you want to make sure that they're high quality. You want to make sure that they're at a certain resolution so that if you have to blow them up and they end up on a banner, it doesn't look like 8-bit Super Mario or something from like the 1980s. You want to make sure it's a high quality photo. Most of the time, and this is just an aside, usually like what they, when you're dealing with photos, they say 300 dots per inch. If a photo is 300 dots per inch, it means it's going to size to no matter what size you want, it's going to be plenty good enough for you to put on the side of a banner hanging off a stadium or inside a brochure. Business cards, pretty self-explanatory. The usage of it, the front and back of it. We use the word mark on the front. We use the initial mark on the back, again, with the colors in line, same type and text. Obviously, envelopes, if you're going to mail out envelopes or maybe you have a welcome packet or something, you want to make sure it's got the logo on there appropriately. And especially if you're sending it out to a third party, you send out to somebody to produce these items for you, you want to make sure that they know, and that's why you send them this brand manual to say, here's our colors, here's our logos, et cetera, et cetera. Letterhead. We're going to take a look at how to do this. This is an easy one, but so many people don't take advantage of it, or you get it printed third party and you don't even know the person who actually does it. You just order it and it comes through. But if you're looking to do your own one, especially digital, that's the one that I always run into. Is someone sends me, university letterhead, but then I want to send out a letter that's got, that same letterhead digitally without scanning it. And so being able to establish and put your logos in Word documents or PDFs is a really important thing. Talking more about applications, using your logos and your marks for branded video cards. The one you'll see a lot of programs that do it really well. Every video starts with that, like a zoom in on the logo, bands, WEU bands, and then it fades into whatever the video is, and then immediately down in the right-hand corner or left-hand corner, TV does this all the time, obviously, you get that watermark or logo bug. And through the entirety of that video, if someone's going to tune in, whether it's shared online or whatever, because in these days people share and share, and before you know it, some viral video is 18 countries away and there is no like attribution to it. You don't know where it came from. So having that logo in the bottom corner, also it's a way to kind of trademark it so people aren't sharing it, but at least it lets advertisement be done. You can see I put a bunch of stuff in here. This is more for after the fact. You can read through this. Some different file formats that we use a lot of times. If you're using video for social media and stuff, the H.264 compression is the one that YouTube uses primarily. Same thing with like Instagram and stuff. So if you're outputting videos from a iMovie or even like something more advanced, there are certain file types that online likes more than others. So just kind of being aware of that's important. Social media. Here's the big thing, folks, and I think those of you who have dealt with this even a little bit, most of the time you give it to one of your students to do it because they're much more interested in it. But in the end, if you're doing any of it, the thing that we deal with is how do these things resize? Because if you've got Instagram, photos, story versus feed, profile pic versus cover photo, and let's say you want the same graphic on all those things, how do you accomplish that? And then excuse my misspelling here, file format. JPEG versus GIF versus PNG versus TIFF. What are the ones that social media likes the best? And knowing those things goes a long way towards your success in making this happen. Time as always runs quick. So we're talking a little bit more about social media, its use in social media, content format. Any of the stuff related to content can still follow this brand manual in terms of like the things that you choose to put up on Instagram. So many times I get nervous, like the students in our marching band will come and say, we want to establish the flute section, Instagram page or something like that. And you're so worried about the fact that, well, I have no control over what the things I put there. So I try to put together like a little mini cheat sheet for those students to say, listen, if you're going to post stuff up, here are the things you absolutely can't do. And here are some things that if you're going to use it, we'd like to see done. And that kind of keeps it a little bit more standardized as opposed to letting students run amok with like what they put on those pages, or even a disclaimer to say, listen, this has nothing to do with the university / the band, but that's kind of a hard case to make. So giving them common practices will go a long way towards that. Resources, how do we do this? Well, there's software to do it. There's online resources, and we'll talk a little bit about some tutorials here, and hopefully I'll be able to give you some information on that. Start with software, and I've talked about this before and some other things. SVG software. SVG stands for scalable vector graphic. Anytime you see a picture that is graphics and not photos, it's what we call vector graphics or illustrations. So anytime you see something like this and someone goes, oh, did you do that in Photoshop or did you produce it in Photoshop? The answer is no. Most often it's done in a program, like if it's not done in Adobe Photoshop, it's done in Adobe Illustrator. And that's the difference between those two programs. One's for, fixing up photos you took. This one specifically for doing graphics. And of course, this poster here was done entirely in Illustrator. Illustrator, many times, is free through your university. You might not even realize it. Faculty have access to site licenses that you may, if you don't ask, you'll never find out. UAB here, all students, they struck a deal with Adobe where students have access to it, and then a certain number of faculty licenses. So for me, it's a free service. But sometimes if you're going to do it yourself, or you want to have that ability to do it yourself with some of these programs, they cost a certain amount of money. And you can see there's like 20 bucks a month. We'll give you the entire Adobe Creative Suite, which does things like, websites and stuff like that. But they also have smaller versions that will allow you to do a little bit less. One of the ones that I really like here is the Affinity Designer, and it's a Mac program. If you're a Mac user, and a lot of us are, it's a program that's a standalone program. It's not a subscription. So if you want to play around with this type of thing, they just released a new version yesterday. You can go on and you can start to make graphics yourself with Affinity Designer, and it's through the App Store. You can buy it, and it's a very easy program to install, and it's really powerful. And a lot of creatives are going to that. Again, Illustrator is still the industry standard. The one at the top there, Corel Draw, is primarily a PC program. It's Windows only, but it has some of the same traits and powerful outputs as some of these other ones we mentioned. And then there's some web-based ones that are okay, but they're not going to get you very far in terms of that. So this is SVG software, doing these illustrations like this. Then you have image editing software. And with image editing software, you're talking now about your Photoshop, which again is included in like the $20 per month if you're going to do the whole Creative Cloud. SERIF Photo Plus is a Windows only. There's a smaller version of Photoshop called Elements that you can buy. Corel Paint Shop, we can go down. And then you can see Affinity Photo is the counterpart to Affinity Designer. So it's kind of the Photoshop to Adobe as Illustrator and Designer are. So Affinity is found these ways to make it a little bit more affordable instead of having a monthly subscription, which can cost you $100-some bucks a month. We also have some free ones here: Adobe Spark, Pixlr, Paint, Sumo Paint, GIMP, Canva. We're going to talk about those here in a second. But if you're looking to do stuff with pictures and editing pictures, these are the programs that you want to use. Obviously, there's a certain amount of this done. There's like some software, I'm sure, that comes on your computer already that's also easy to do. You know what I mean? We talked about this a second ago, but I want to come back to it. Color formats. It's really important that when you're producing any of these graphics that you know whether it's being print or online. CMYK is going to be your print stuff. That's the colors you want to provide to whoever's printing for you. And then RGB, of course, is the one that's going to be primarily for monitors and screen displays. If you got like you walk in your music building and there's like a TV up there that shows you upcoming events, you want to make sure that those graphics that you provide are in RGB. We talked about resolution there at the bottom. 300 DPI or PPI is a good number to go by in terms of your print projects. I want to back up here and talk just for a second. I meant to mention this. SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. That is a new thing. It's maybe now 10 years old. Scalable Vector Graphics are graphics that no matter what size you make them, they never pixelate. So if you're using it on the back of a Matchbox, that's one thing. Or if you're blowing it up again to, for a wrap that's going to go around a bus, they scale. So if you're going to provide, like a lot of times, printers and people doing that for you will ask if you have a SVG or some sort of graphic that will allow that resizing without any trouble. And let me fast forward down back to here. So this is the logo that we use for Marching Blazers here at UAB. We didn't try to use the dragon head or anything like that. It's a simple logo. The UAB is actually incorporated, that graphics incorporated by athletics. And since we're part of that, we're able to use that as well. A lot of times they won't let this graphic, there's like, you know, athletics only graphics they won't allow for other organizations to use. But you can see in this instance, there are three things you want to end up with when you're all done with this. And this is really kind of the crux of everything I'm talking about with logos. If you're going to have someone do a logo for you for whatever organization or thing it is, in the end, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. And you want it either in what they call a PNG, portable net graphic, an EPS, encapsulated postscript, or an SVG, a scalable vector graphic. A lot of times, you'll get it as a PNG. And let me explain what the PNG does. Anytime that you, like, let's say you build something in Word and you export it as a JPEG. When you go to put it up on like your Word document, it's got the big white box that outlines everything. You got the bounding box. With a portable net graphic, you can set it to erase all of that background. So in this instance, anything I move this UAB Marching Blazers logo over, it's not going to have white around it. It's just going to be just that, which is exactly what you want. Same thing with scalable vector graphics, and even encapsulated postscripts are going to give you the logo that you want, so you can use it on any instance, color or otherwise, to be able to do this. Now, what happens when this logo you get is also being used on a piece of white paper? Well, it's not going to serve you so much use. So many times if you're asking someone to do a graphic for you, you want to ask them to give you those color variations we talked about before. I'm going to show you this. This is a special campaign mark. We just had our 25th anniversary with Marching Blazers. And so I asked our creative department to put together a logo that could be used throughout this past season on anything from, like, you know, alumni shirts to the shirts the band wore, hats, whatever. And you can see they gave it to me in all these different formats: a black and white one, just black, just white, one that can be used against a black background. And then if you use it against white, you'll notice this last one has an outline around it, so it stands out from a black or something like that. If you're going to ask someone to do this from you, and again, this I asked my creative services department to do for me, and a lot of times there's people sitting around specifically there to do those things, develop a logo or whatever it is. But these are the things, if they know what they're doing, are going to provide you some alternatives so you can use it in any format, whether it be a shirt or a hat or whatever it is. Okay? And so these are just an example of that. This is what I provide. This is through our licensing partner at UAB. And I'm using this. This isn't the one I always use, but this is what I send to companies that are like doing t-shirts or something for us. And you can see it gives all the variations of the Blaze logo. It gives the primary word mark and all its variations. And then down below, it gives all the different colors and shows it in Pantones, which is another color format I didn't talk about, RGB, and then process colors, which is CMYK. So what's the coolest part about this is that if you're an illustrator making these logos, you can save the logos as a PDF that is editable, an editable PDF. And when I send this PDF out to a partner who's doing t-shirts for us, they can open it up in Illustrator and pull that logo as a scalable vector graphic right off of that PDF and begin using it for my t-shirts or whatever else to give me a proof. So being able to have something like this, a little one sheet with those logos on it that are saved as an editable PDF, allows any company to be able to grab any of the things you want. So you send it to him, you say, I want the Blaze logo that's number 0001. He knows what you want. He sends it back to you with that, you know, with that mock-up, and you go from there. This is real helpful, and I use it a lot when I'm sending stuff out to vendors or even using it myself. We talked about apps for the beginners. These apps have been talked about a lot. Many of you guys have probably used some version of this. I hope so. If you haven't, you absolutely should. Canva and Spark. Spark is an Adobe-based product, and Canva is independent of itself. But with Spark, like by owning the Creative Cloud Suite, I automatically get access to Spark throughout the year. But it's free to anybody who signs up. You can go in and sign up. The difference, of course, any free version versus other version is you got to have the little, like, created in Adobe, you know, Spark, you know, kind of bug at the bottom of that graphic, which you may or may not want to do. But these two programs are excellent for producing web graphics of all sorts, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is a look at the page for the Adobe Spark app. And because I'm a paid member of that app, and again, you can do it on a yearly basis just for the Spark app, I can brand it myself. I can brand it with all my stuff right out of the gate. And I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to fast forward because we're running out of time. So let me get you to these tutorials here, and I'll come back to Spark. This is me putting a logo on MS Word. I didn't want us to actually go into Word and do this. But obviously headers and footers, once you have that PNG file or whatever, it's very easy to open up your header or footer on MS Word, put the logo in, resize it to how you want, add an address. Like you see down at the bottom, I put like the different ensembles for this organization. And then when you go to save something in Word, you can save it, you know, normally it saves as a docx, but if you scroll down in that options, one of them is .dot, which is Word template. And every time you click that, it'll automatically open a blank document that has it set up with header and footer. And now for digital documents or whatever you want to use, it's right there and able for you to use it. So having that graphic, like I said, in that PNG format allows you to put it into programs like Word and other programs that you may need. Let me share. This is going to be a quick change over here, and I promise it'll go quick, but I want to show you this really quick. I'm going to stop sharing. Hello, people. And now I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to share a different screen for you. And this is actually, as soon as I get it here, is a look at Spark and how it actually looks when you go to use it. So here with yeah, here we go. So here's what Spark looks like when I open it up, and you can see here it starts off with all these different options: Instagram story, post, whatever it is, and you can choose that as a jumping off point. They have beautiful templates down here that you can use for social media. One of the beautiful things about both, and this is the same for Canva, is that if you start making something for Instagram story, you can then change the format and resize it automatically for Facebook cover or Facebook profile pic, and then it automatically redoes it. What I do want to show you, and one of the advantages of being a paid member, is that I have my brands already saved. So when I click this, it'll open up and show me UAB Bands brands, and my colors are saved here. All my colors are saved. My font that I like to use, that's a university font, saved. And then all my logos are here. The 25th anniversary logo, the one for UAB Bands, the one for the university is here. And now I can easily incorporate those into all of what's going on. So if I go back to a main screen here and I say I want a branded graphic, I open it up and it automatically imports it with the colors that I want that are exactly my university's colors. So I say I want to make a Facebook ad, it opens it up, it generates, you know, just some copy. And now from here you can substitute out pictures. I can replace this graphic, I can replace the logo if I want, I can switch the colors out. And if I want to change it from Facebook to Instagram to whatever, it's a very quick process. Okay. So that's in the fastest possible way that I can say this. We only got about 5, 6, 7 minutes left. Obviously, I could take you into Photoshop and all that, but most of us aren't going to deal with that. Most of us are going to find easy methods like Spark or Canva that allows us to do it on the quick and on the easy. The key, folks, is getting that portable net graphic or that scalable vector graphic in multiple variations that you can start to use in these different programs or send out to vendors whenever you need to. And again, it doesn't have to be you doing it. And that's kind of the end all be all of this as I talk about it, is that with anything like this, if you're going to do it, there's usually someone at your university that can do it for you. I also put down here third-party designs. You always see these ads, maybe if you're logging on to Facebook or YouTube. Fiverr's one. Fiverr is literally a community of like people who are freelancing. They may have a job working for Microsoft during the day, but in the evening they're a graphic designer, and for very cheap you can ask them to do any number of things. Put together a video for you, make a video card, or create a logo for you, and they're all priced out at different things. These are all websites here where you can make your own logo. A lot of times though, your university has someone who's got a degree in it, and you might as well just ask them to do it, and they'll usually generate it for you because they're able to. Really, that is it. We left about 6 minutes here left. I thank you very much. We have any questions or anything? That I haven't been paying attention with any of that stuff. Let me stop sharing here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Sean, for all that information.
Yeah, it's a lot.
if you know Sean, or if you've seen him present on these various topics before, you know that he's just a wizard at at this, more so than many of us. So thank you for all that really helpful information that we can possibly get started with some of this on our own as well. If there are any chats in the last, or any questions in the last few minutes, feel free to drop them in the chat. It might be easier also if you just want to use the raise hand function, and you can unmute yourself and just ask real quick.
Yeah, like I
and
said,
I know Sean, you were also going to drop. Were you going to drop a Google?
Yeah, let me do that right
now
now while I'm thinking about it. I got it here in the notes. I'm going to drop you 2 links. One is for the actual PDF of the presentation, and the other one is just for like an outline of the PowerPoint presentation. They're both Dropbox apps. They're right there, and you can click on them, and that'll allow you to have this whole presentation visually, and also just an outline of it. Again, this is something that I think can be used in a choral program, string programs. Even if you've got a business as a freelance drill writer, or you're an arranger or something like that, everyone needs to have something like this so that you have a way to market yourself that isn't the old, clip art out of, Microsoft Word that, there's like half a dozen musical notes and everyone uses them. I remember that, geez, when I first started teaching, it was something to get like, one piece of clip art at the top of a letter I sent home to mom or dad or something, I think this is especially important. I do want to highlight this, especially as we continue to be under quarantine. We're working on all these projects, whether it be like these videos we're doing, or we're trying to send out things digitally to our recruits and stuff like that. And this can go a long way to making that much easier to generate and not have to rely, especially if you don't have the budget for it. If you're teaching high school, or you don't have or college, you don't have a large budget for producing these things, there are some real ways to get it done on the cheap that are ultimately going to provide you the things you can then use for all the stuff we talked about. And again, I'll punch my email in here, and I'm happy to, if you've got questions or something past this, please email me, and I'm happy to discuss it. This is something, like I said, I do a lot. It started as basically a way for when I was at Florida State to make concert posters, and it kind of grew from there. And there's only so many ways I can, contort Rick Clary's face onto a concert poster before you go somewhere else. So I appreciate you guys all being here. I hope this was helpful. Matt, I'll turn it back over to you, and just thanks.
Yeah, sure. And one thing, Sean, it says the file is still uploading, at least in my Google Drive, or the Dropbox. So is that? I'm not sure if that's on my end.
We'll check with that. We'll check with that for sure.
Okay.
Really quickly, someone asked if there are resources on how to learn how to do this. I'll tell you, for me, it's online. YouTube is a wealth of knowledge from anything on like how to mix, LinkedIn. All those things have wonderful tutorials by probably like a 12-year-old who, knows how to do it way better than you do. And, 5 minutes will get you started on how to use Photoshop and some of these other things in an effort to make that happen. I'll check that link. And if need be, maybe when it gets posted back to the video gets uploaded, we can upload a link if this isn't still working for Dropbox.
Great. Excellent. And just a reminder, if there aren't any more questions, CBDNA, we're still accepting applications for some more of these webinars. So if you or someone would be interested in presenting their talents and their resources, much like Sean's, we would love to be able to accommodate and help you share those with a broader audience. So.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad to get through this without my computer lighting it on fire or freezing up or something like that. So,
absolutely.
Again,
well, thank you again so much, Sean. We really appreciate your expertise and your knowledge in this area with everyone.
Yeah, best everyone out there.
Yeah, hope everyone is doing well.
All right, and there they all go. There they all go.
It's the Zoom leave out the door.
The Zoom leave, absolutely. All right, Matt.
Good job, Sean. That was terrific. Yeah.
There's just like I said, I probably could have gone for another hour, but man, that went by quick as it is, So
yeah, no, that's
all good, and hopefully some good stuff for some peeps out there.
So if you wouldn't mind, because you can probably just stop the recording on your end.
Once it gives me the upload link, I'll send that directly to you so you're able to edit that.
Do you, and can you copy that? Can you copy Josh Kearney on that too?
Absolutely, I will.
Yeah, just so, because it'll be easy. He can just pop it up there on YouTube. So
Fantastic. I will do that. I'll check that Dropbox link. I don't know why. I mean, that's a small document, so I don't know why that would be providing so many issues. But
yeah, no worries. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. So I didn't know if anybody else was having that same issue. So.
Yeah, I'll check it and make sure everything is on the up and up.
Cool. Awesome. You have some fans that want to talk to you. So
Yeah.
it's like the line. It's like the line at Midwest, you know. So, okay, I'll see you later, Sean. Be well.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for everyone for coming. Oh, Sean is the man. I didn't even see that. Very, very clever, John Franklin. But yeah, all good. And Lauren, thank you for being here as well. Yeah, I'm gonna end conversation and then get everyone out of here. John, thanks a bunch, buddy.